For today, first, let me just thank my colleagues, Congressman Jones, Congressman McDermott, Congressman Ellison, and others for speaking out this morning, clearly saying that it's past time to bring the war in Afghanistan to a swift and orderly end. There's no military solution in Afghanistan. We need to bring our troops home now, and we need to make sure that we leave no permanent military bases. The American people are sick and tired of the past decade of war, and they want this war to end. At a time when tens of millions of Americans are unemployed and nearly 50 million Americans are living in poverty, the Pentagon is requesting almost $100 billion in the President's budget to fund overseas contingency operations, including the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, first of all, we all thought that the war in Iraq is really supposed to be over. So why in the world are we spending billions of dollars on a war that we are no longer fighting? Mr. Speaker, we've already spent over $1.3 trillion on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we cannot afford to blindly continue down this path. The reason, of course, that I voted against that original resolution in 2001 authorizing the use of military force was because it was a blank check for war against any nation, anywhere, anytime, any organization, and any individual. The situation we are in right now, being asked to spend another $100 billion on endless war, is exactly what we should have considered 10 years ago when we went down this path. This war without end must end. While everyone would like a stable democracy in Afghanistan, the facts on the ground suggest that we are not headed in that direction. Yet we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars there. Instead of a stable democracy, we do have a corrupt state that relies almost entirely on foreign countries for its budget. The reality on the ground in Afghanistan stands in stark contrast to the steady reports of progress we have been hearing from those who seek to maintain a military presence in Afghanistan in 2014 and beyond. It's time to bring our troops home from Afghanistan, not in 2014, not next year, but right now. Later today, some of us will be meeting with the courageous Army officer, Colonel Daniel Davis. Colonel Davis wrote a revealing account of the war in Afghanistan after witnessing the huge gap between what the American public was told about progress in Afghanistan and the dismal situation on the ground. Colonel Davis's assessment is backed up by a recently released report from Afghanistan's NGO safety officer. The report warns NGO employees in Afghanistan not to take seriously the message of advances in security coming from the Pentagon. Mr. Speaker, I ask that this page from the Afghanistan NGO Safety Officer Quarterly Data Report be inserted into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. The report reads, and I quote, "We find their suggestion that the insurgency is waning to be a dangerous fiction that should be given no consideration in NGO risk assessment for the coming year." A dangerous political fiction. I repeat, a dangerous political fiction. That is how this organization, dedicated to ensure the safety of NGO employees in Afghanistan, characterizes the rosy reports of steady progress in Afghanistan. Mr. Speaker, if we're going to ask our brave men and women in uniform to continue to risk their lives in Afghanistan, the least we can do is be frank and honest about how we are doing in Afghanistan. Our soldiers deserve to know the truth, and the American people deserve to know the truth after spending the past decade fighting wars. The war in Afghanistan has already taken the lives of almost 1,900 soldiers and drained our treasury of over $500 billion in direct costs. Those costs will only go up as we spend trillions of dollars on long-term care for our veterans, which we must do. We are set to spend an additional $88 billion in Afghanistan over the next year, while domestic cuts in education, health care, roads, bridges, and other essential priorities are sacrificed. Again, I repeat, it is time to bring our troops home from Afghanistan, not in 2014, not next year, but right now. Let me conclude by saying that as the daughter of a 25-year Army officer who served in 2 wars, I salute our troops and I honor our troops. Our servicemen and women have performed with incredible courage and commitment in Afghanistan, but they have been put in harm's way, and they have performed valiantly. It's time to bring them home. Thank you, and I yield the balance of my time.